y no me puedo conformar. He probado y quiero más. Yo quiero enamorarme más de ti. Enséñame a amarte y a vivir conforme a tu justicia y tu verdad. Con mi vida quiero adorar, con todo lo que tengo y lo que soy, todo lo que he sido te lo doy. Que mi vida sea para ti como un perfume a tus pies. Y cuando pienso en tu cruz y en todo lo que has dado, tu sangre por mí, por llevar mi pecado. Y cuando pienso en tu mano, hasta aquí hemos llegado por tu fidelidad. Y no me puedo conformar, no, 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 Señor. He probado y quiero más de ti, Señor. Yo quiero enamorarme más de ti. Enséñame a amarte y a vivir conforme a tu justicia y tu verdad. Con mi vida quiero adorar, con todo lo que tengo y lo que soy, todo lo que he sido te lo doy. Que mi vida sea para ti como un perfume a tus pies. Feliz Día del Amor y la Amistad desde la Iglesia Presbyteriana Reformada en Sagua La Grande.
Felicidades.
Happy day for the fellowship from Sagua La Grande.
Good morning, everybody. We're at the church and out there in town. Welcome to our Guild Ed class today, which is on our Cuba partnership. The music you just heard came from the church. We'll talk more about that a little further down. I want to start by talking a little bit of background, a little feeling for the city and the church in Sagua La Grande. Sagua La Grande is a city on the north coast of Cuba. It happens to be the closest colonial port to Florida, so it's always been a trade center with North America until the last 60, 70 years. So I want to tell you a little bit about the church. And I know that some of you have heard some of this material before and have seen some of these pictures we've had. I have some new pictures sent in the last few weeks, new videos. But some people I know out in the audience have not seen these talks, not seen these videos. These churches here, the one on the upper left is a Presbyterian church in Cuba. That's where the Central Presbyterian. The one on the upper right is the most beautiful church in Presbyterian church in Cuba. In my opinion, it's the Church at Matanzas Seminary in Matanzas. Represents three mainline American denominations. Lower left is a small town Presbyterian church in San Nicolas. Their sister church is down in Albuquerque, typically in one of the suburbs down by the river. The lower center church is a big Catholic church in Sagua La Grande. It occupies almost a whole city block, right on the plaza, central plaza of the town. Walked by it many times. It's usually pretty boarded up, not very active, but it's probably 150 years old or more. Never been inside it, I don't think. And on the right is another Presbyterian church in the province, about 20 miles away. Now, so this is a nice looking Presbyterian church that's in Cuba. I didn't even show the headquarters in Havana. where we have slept and we have been visited. The headquarters of their version of PCUSA is in Havana. It's a very nice church. Looks like it was built in Ohio, 80 years ago. It was probably designed by architects in New Jersey, because the entire Cuban Presbyterian Church was a Presbyterian of was a church affiliated with the New Jersey Presbyterian in the U.S. Now I'm going to flip to another church. What church do you think this is? This is our sister church in Sagua La Grande. It looks kind of like a county jail. There's no steeple, there's no cross, there's no banners, no signs, no nothing. I'm not going to dwell upon the reason for that, but I'll be happy to explain it later. It's a fascinating history involving the politics of the city of Sagua La Grande and the fact that Americans were proposing to restore this as a Christian church, and of course, the entire government of Cuba is a socialist or communist government. And they were a little nervous about Americans coming in and installing a church in Sagua La Grande, especially in their historical district. So the only sign of this church you'll see is on the outside is a small sign over by the front door. This picture was taken some years ago before that door was, where the sign was installed. This is the interior of the church. This is the sanctuary. It looks much nicer than the outside. All agree? It looks like a church on the inside, and it was. This is the way Bill Armbruster and others built the church. And this is the sign that exists today next to the front door of the church. It names the church, and it says, it gives the words Santa Fe. It doesn't explain what the relationship to Santa Fe or what Santa Fe in this world they're talking about. There's multiple Santa Fe's or anything. So the sign is a little mysterious, but it was intended to reflect the fact that this church in Santa Fe was instrumental in restoring this church to a working church from a facility standpoint. This is our greetings to you all. This is a picture taken just for you. It's taken about a month ago now, 3 weeks, a month ago. And these are essentially some of the key elders in the church, volunteers, pastors of the upper right in the background. The pianist is on the far left in the background. He's a wonderful singer and pianist. We'll find out more about that. We're going to hear from the fellow on the far right. His name is Nelson Garcia. By comparison, this is a picture they sent last year. Everybody's in a mask. The pandemic has gone away and diminished greatly in Cuba also. Now no one's wearing a mask. Some of these members have died since this picture was taken from COVID. I have here 2 videos, greetings, and I'm going to ask Margarita here, Lopez, to interpret this as I play these 2 greetings to you. Why not, Margarita? And listen carefully, and then you can speak. We'll pause this whenever you're getting away. Okay.
Saludos para todos, que Dios los bendiga. Hemos pasado un COVID aquí y que esperamos que ustedes estén bien de salud. Bueno, lo esperamos pronto porque estamos muy contentos con ustedes para esperarlos y pasar aquí unos días.
So we'll try it. We got a technical error.
Bueno, queridos hermanos de la iglesia de Santa Fe, aquí estamos en Sagua La Grande tratando de enviarles a ustedes un mensaje de reconocimiento y gratitud por el apoyo que ustedes han tenido con nuestra iglesia en los arreglos que se están haciendo. Ustedes ya lo verán. Nos sentimos muy agradecidos y también nos sentimos muy entusiasmados con la noticia de que
Right again.
Oh, he said, hi Santa Fe, and we are here. Thank you for all your help. And they are fixing something there.
Kitchen.
Oh, they are fixing something in Okay, they are so happy for those you is coming.
A venir pronto para compartir con nosotros acá. Ustedes saben que siempre nos gozamos mucho, ¿no? Con la presencia de ustedes y con todo lo que nosotros podemos hacer aquí.
He's waiting to visit from people this place, not this country, because they enjoy too much when people from here they visit them.
Para la alabanza y para la gratitud a nuestro Dios. Mando un saludo también especial, bueno, para el pastor, por supuesto, para Bill y para Judy. No sé si ella debe acordarse de mí, hace 10 años que yo.
Send blessings for the pastor, for Bill, for Judy, and for all of us.
Estuve por allá, ella me albergó en su casa, así que a ella y al esposo también les mando mi saludo y nuestros deseos de grandes bendiciones en su vida y como miembros de la iglesia también. Bueno, queridos hermanos de
In your home, you will like when he was there, and thank you.
Thank you. That's all for now.
Okay.
Okay, we're past the technical glitch, I hope. I want to talk about some of the accomplishments at the church in 2022. First up is two new sewing machines. We carried 2 new sewing machines to Sagua La Grande last fall. And these are the members of the ladies sewing circle, the sewing group. And they were just pleased as punch to get 2 machines, Jan Nomi and another, it was a used machine, but it was a Bernina, very nice machine. Here's one of the ladies working away on the new machine. They enthusiastically got on top of it right away. This is the sewing group at work, at the kitchen table in the original kitchen.
What do they sew, Bill? I mean, clothing for each other or?
Everything, clothing, artwork, just
Okay.
everything my wife does, for example, quilts, clothing, toys, so on. And this is the sewing group, talking with part of our group last year. You see a couple of visitors, Linda Lovey's there. Deborah McCackman from Baltimore is there. We traveled with the Baltimore church this last fall. They are the other sister church of Sagua La Grande. We also brought them a digital projector. It's and this is the pastor at the pulpit, and behind her on the white wall is an image, a picture projected by the projector. And this projector allows them to greatly eliminate the need for paper, handouts, hymns. They can put a hymn up on the wall or a prayer, Spanish, and they can put pictures like this of scenes, religious scenes for the congregation. And since 90 to 95% of Cubans are literate, schools are good in Cuba. Let me tell you, better than they are here in Santa Fe. I'm sorry to say. But the literacy rate's up around 95% allegedly. And everybody there reads, so they can read this stuff on the wall. And they don't need books or print anymore. It's really helping their services. New electronic keyboard. This was donated by the Baltimore church. This was their major contribution last year. The Huntington Ridge Church outside Baltimore brought a nice 3-octave keyboard, I think it is. And this is the pianist, Demetrios Hovas, and the pastor, Yadam Figueroa. And I'll play it. I think I got about 1 minute. I recorded this the day after we gave them within 1 day. It's not perfect presentation, but this is right out of the box. And the following day they produced this one.
Su misericordia
We started food delivery in Cuba, in Sagua La Grande, that last year. There is a company in Spain called September 23 that ships food to various countries. And they get their food from South America, from Europe. And it mainly goes to the wealthy, high-level government compounds in Cuba, and to the big resort hotels offshore. There's some very nice resorts on the islands off of Cuba. They cater only to Europeans. Americans rarely go there. It's actually illegal for Americans under U.S. law to stay in some of these hotels because they're controlled by the government. So, and that's another long story itself. But we found we could piggyback onto this exclusive fancy food service and order food and have it delivered frozen to Sagua La Grande within 4 or 5 days. And so we started shipping food at kind of irregular schedule. And for our last trip, we shipped food 6 days in advance of our trip, and a lot of food. So we sent enough food to provide us food to eat while we were there over the weekend, and for the congregation to share it. And it was visibly noticeable that some of the people, had their eye on the grilled chicken. They had not had. It's hard to get chicken down there now. Hard to get decent food. But this has really helped the church, I think. They take the food and invent some occasion to have a feast at the food at the church. Then they send us pictures like this to prove that they got the food. We're kind of beyond that now. We don't need that anymore, but we've been doing it. Sunday school at Sagua La Grande has been in place for years. This is an older picture. You've seen it on my poster, I think, of Sunday school in operation. During the pandemic, the government ordered the church shut down for some months, and the pastor had to take another job. He taught in the public schools last year, 4 days a week, and managed the church on their 3-day weekends. And they continued some homeschooling during the pandemic, and this was at the pastor's home, I believe. We've rectified that situation. He's now back working full time in the church. I'll talk about that more at the end when we talk about money. This is the pianist, Hovas, and he has one of his young students, much younger students. He generally teaches piano to the youth. The church, that girl, say this young girl is supposed to be youth, but he does a wonderful job of teaching kids. They are interested. The big project for this year was a new kitchen, at least an extension of their kitchen. They proposed last year to build a kitchen serving area, kitchen preparation and serving area out near the front of the church, and in a room that is inside the exterior walls of the church, but it is closed off from the rest of the interior of the church. And this is because this is where they feed the homeless in the neighborhood. They have a regular meal program whereby the homeless can walk in and get a meal for breakfast or for lunch on certain days or every day. Depends on what the food supply is like. But this gives the homeless a separate place to eat. There's tables and chairs, and they can eat, and they're served from a serving window in this room. Here's the kitchen area being built a few months ago, and this project was funded by the Armbruster family and Joe Armbruster himself. Funded work at this church since day one. Here they are doing it, a partition wall, which is part of this project. This is the serving window, and there will be a door on this opening to the right. It can be locked. It's partly a security measure. A single woman inside the church can serve food to homeless people and not worry about homeless people wandering around the church unsupervised. They mostly know the homeless in the neighborhood. Very few. Almost everybody in Sagua La Grande knows each other. So it's not. I don't think it's a great risk, but they were concerned about having one elderly lady serving food to people in the morning without any assistance. So this allows them to prepare the food, cook it, or put it in this kitchen preparation area and serve it out the window. And when the people are gone, they lock. This is on a separate exterior door. It's not the main door of the church. They have a separate door. And so they can lock up the door and they're done for the day. This is they were very excited about this project. Normally, when they have guests like us, we eat in this courtyard. This is a beautiful courtyard inside the church. The building is an old colonial military officer's home. It's a classic colonial Spanish home for a wealthy man. And so there are bedrooms. It's a square that occupies a quarter of a city block. And there's bedrooms. There were bedrooms around sides. There was a kitchen area. There was a living room area. And inside is a central courtyard. You can lock people out of this courtyard by closing the front door of the church. And the doors on the right now lead to multi-purpose rooms, restrooms, an office, and the kitchen is in the far end at the back. The church conducts traditional services just like we do. There's a baptism. It was conducted while we were there. You see Harry standing by and assist there, and they're baptizing the cute little girl on the right. It's just a very moving experience, I thought, for us to be invited to this. They serve communion. Picture is not very good, but this is communion service where Oscar and Lazarus were participating. Lazarus' sister came to Cuba, visited with you and others here, and she's one of the few people from this church that traveled from Cuba. She passed away from COVID in the past year. This is Yalen's husband, Darhel Laban. He is also a pastor, and his church is about 20 miles down the road. For years, he has driven his motor scooter back and forth to that church, at least 4 days a week. And they assist each other. They back each other up when they're in each other's churches for projects for an event like this. And here's a communion service that was prepared when we were there last November. You'll see Harry sitting way in the back there behind the pastor. And you'll see me off on the left with my gray head and underneath the window. Let me say something about these windows. Remember when the first picture I showed you, they were wooden windows, beautiful solid wood windows opening to the street. And they all rotted from rot and weather. The rain, it's so heavy in Cuba that wood doesn't last on the outside of anything. And so they replaced the wood window covers with louvered hot metal doors. This is metal made in Cuba. It's what I call hot metal. They take scrap, steel, aluminum, whatever, throw it in a pot and melt it and cast it into something like this. And they made this way they can get cheap replacements for the beautiful wooden window covers that fall apart. They have no screens, no glass in these doors. They just open these louvers to the street. There's no glass window in the whole church. So they don't need it. The problem there is too hot most of the time. It's never too cold. So they enjoy the breeze. The problem with these windows is that they get traffic noise, and you'll hear it in some of the music recording. The big truck goes by. Talk about music and performances. This church loves its music. It's singing and it's playing and acting, and the youth do it, the kids do it. This is the brother of Hobas. He's quite a musician. If you've seen in other pictures before, but he plays the guitar, sings, dances. These two brothers are quite good. Here's the choir practicing. They're just good for regular choir practice. And, they have an elder choir and a regular choir. Not everybody showed up for these photos, but we got a bunch of them. This is the senior choir, and this is the former pastor Dahlia, who was the pastor that built about 2 years ago. And
What is she doing now, Bill?
she's now retired and moved back to her hometown. I forget, maybe near Santiago, further to the east a ways. And I know that at least two of these ladies passed away last year. In fact, in the back left, you'll see the name, Lazarus' sister. But yeah, she visited here maybe 15 years ago. You remember her?
Yes,
Really?
and she came with the passenger from there and he, he defected at the Miami airport. There was Caridad, but it never Caridad.
Caridad.
Yeah, she had never flown before. She had never been much out of Sagua La Grande. And here she was at the Miami airport and she had to go to Dallas and change planes and get to Albuquerque. And she did it.
Yeah, yeah. It was quite an experience. She'd never been in a big airport before.
No.
Never been on a plane. I can't even navigate the airports anymore. Plus she did it and not speaking the language.
Yeah, and
but-
just to get from Sagua to La Habana was a big adventure.
And her pastor is still in Florida someplace. I don't know who he is. Anyway, that's quite a story. I've seen in this Miami airport, I've seen people running for it, running for the fence. You know, trying to get, usually get caught by the security police. Get off the plane, run for it, get out of line and take off. Okay, so this is Yalen and Hobas again. This is a very recent photo because she's playing the keyboard. And I think I have time to play at least part of this. Play.
Hay una unción en este lugar. Siento el poder de su majestad. Hay una unción en este lugar. Siento el poder de su majestad. Jesús, estás aquí mirándome. Jesús, estás aquí cuidándome. Jesús, estás aquí llenándome. Sé que estás aquí. Jesús, estás aquí mirándome. Jesús, estás aquí cuidándome. Jesús, estás aquí llenándome. Sé que estás aquí.
Zeus thought the news. This was prepared just a few weeks ago.
Siento su fuerza. No, lo siento.
They put on plays and dramas. And this is an adult group that is young people putting on a play. I don't know what the story was or what the theme was, but I think the fellow on the left is a peasant. He's a peasant, and I think the lady in the center in red is probably his wife, but she's not well dressed. The other princesses are. And on the right, you have an evil bishop. Not to discourage Catholicism, but I think that's looks like an evil bishop to me. And so this is one of their seasonal plays they put on. This is a youth performance. I have several videos of youth performances now. Couldn't find the favorite one, an Easter sunrising performance out in the fields as the sun came up on Easter morning.
So do you know how old that prior photo is?
That's I'd say it's I'd say we don't know. I took it.
Oh, you took it.
Yeah, it's in the last 2 years.
No mask.
Yeah, before this was just before pandemic. And so the teenagers love these performances. I tried to find my picture of the outdoor performance on the Easter sunrise. Here's a Saturday morning kids program. And, they have all kinds of Saturday morning programs. We were there for a very elaborate one. We brought in a band with electric guitar, and a singer, and they played games and served food. This is more typical. You can see that one girl on a white and in white on the right. She's there for her ballet lesson, and the girl on the far right is young Sophie. You've all seen my favorite video of Sophie the singer. I played it about 20 times. She's getting older. I'm anxious to see her again this year. She'll be a teenager right now. And there she is, singer Sophie. Looks like a pro now, doesn't it? This is Sophie with Barb Hutchison and Sharon. Barb was not able to go with us the past year. She was ill at the last minute. And so she's been in Cuba more than anybody in the congregation now. I have pictures of her in Cuba 15, 18 years ago with Dave Mason. He looked about the same as she looks in this one. Now keep watching. I just thought I'd show you these are the top brass for the Presbyterian Church in all of Cuba. This is like the head of the officers of our General Assembly in our DC USA office. This is Dora Arce. She's the lead. Not sure what her title is in Cuba, but she's the equivalent of top person in our Presbyterian National Church.
Just the person on the right is Silverberto. He's the pastor of Cadre Inn, which was our sister church in Ohio. So that first church we saw in your first picture, was the one we went to 4 times.
I see.
And the gentleman on the left, the last Presbyterian church, we got stuck at his church because of transportation.
Oh.
And it was beautiful. And then I only got to spend one night at Sagua, but we became very, very close, all of us, in the Presbyterian trip. Just very hospitable. Can you imagine? You think people only staying for one night, they're there for 5.
They were here in Sagua La Grande in the picture statement for the installation of the new pastor. One of their activities is, like I said before, to feed the poor. And this is feeding poor, I think it's all men, poor gentlemen in the existing old church kitchen. And they just come in and eat breakfast or lunch. I'm not sure what they serve, but they come in and start whatever they can get. This is the Wednesday morning elders group. The elders are welcome to come in on Wednesday mornings for a warm meal, and socialization, counseling, Bible study, singing. They just have a pleasant morning in church every Wednesday. And I've shown this picture recently here, this last fall. This is outreach to the elderly and poor. They actually go out into the community, usually within walking mile or two from the church. There's a lot of people, and a lot of them are poor. Interestingly enough, many of them are housed in these old colonial buildings built 120 years ago that were ornate, beautiful stone and concrete buildings. Many of them are still standing, but all the wood parts are gone. No windows, no doors. They've either replaced them or they're absent. Or they've got curtains hanging in the window. And they fill these buildings with homeless people. People have no place else to live. And we got to know a fellow named Jose, who is living in one of the rooms. And he was about probably the worst living quarters I've ever seen in adult living. And cardboard walls separating from an adjacent resident. No running water in the room.
I was just going to say, Luis and I wrote for many years back and forth after that first visit that I made to Sagua. And we, after we must have done that for 10 years, we probably kept that up. But anyway, she was such I mean, it is, I haven't seen her for obviously a long time, such a beautiful person. But one of my memories is that she invited all of us in that trip to come to her home for Bible study. And it was really meaningful because she was so reluctant because she had so little. And she was, you know, I just, is it really okay to do this? I'm, living in this basically a shack, and yet we all went, and it was just this incredibly beautiful experience to be there with her, sitting in a circle, doing a Bible study lesson in her home.
Near as I can tell, she was kind of the T.D. Haynes of the church back in the day. She knew everybody, knew what was going on, gradually ran the church from an organizational standpoint. And here's where she lives today, saying goodbye to us. And that's not exactly upscale housing. That's recycled, scrap, corrugated steel. It's the front wall of it. Good.
Do you get a sense, you used the word homeless a little bit earlier. Did you get a sense after is homeless mean the same there as it does here? Is it economic or is it psychological or is it drugs or is it...
I'll tell you one thing, they don't have any tents on the streets because they can't afford tents.
Yeah.
And they never have gone backpacking in expensive mountaineering tents. You see all over our cities now. I don't think there's a drug problem in Cuba. The cartels are not allowed. No one gets into the port in Cuba without being inspected and admitted. And the government will not tolerate the cartels. So you know this. They'll kill them. We won't mess with them. And so there's little or no drug traffic in Cuba. Havana might be a partial exception, but it's just a. And where they find their housing, if they lose housing, some of these colonial buildings are abandoned, and they just move in and find some scrap lumber to travel up and give them some little privacy, and they sleep in there. And the economic situation for the lower class and middle class is really tragic, and that's a whole lecture in itself.
So it's primarily an economic situation.
And I have to say they're kind of fortunate that, what is it, 100,000 Cubans coming into the U.S. this year. A lot of young people are leaving. They just have no hope. I've talked to a couple of people in this town who have adult kids who have left for the U.S. We talked to one man who's tried 4 times. He's on his 4th try to get to the U.S. First 3 times he was on a boat that got turned around by our Coast Guard and towed back to Cuba. He's going there for his 4th try, leaving from Sagua La Grande. He was trying to save a little money to do that. So, but what I'm saying is, a lot of young Cubans are leaving. We need space for someone to sleep somewhere. I don't know. I didn't bring a lot of pictures of the city this time. Well, you want to see pictures of these beautiful ornate buildings that are now homes for the homeless, with cardboard partitions inside. This is Sagua La Grande, typical Saturday morning. People shopping mostly, socializing, more dogs and cars, lots of bicycles, bicycle contraction. I felt very comfortable walking around in this crowd. And I wouldn't feel comfortable walking in a crowd like this in East Los Angeles. And I haven't been comfortable in East Los Angeles for the last 50 years. I get the feeling there's no drugs or guns among this crowd right here. And one of the reasons it feels very safe is they all know each other. I mean, they all live within walking distance of this corner. No one drives their car into town, hang around or go partying or carousing. They're all out looking for food. Because you get everybody in food stamp, everybody in Cuba, middle class down, gets something equivalent to our food stamps or EBT card. And there's a tienda on almost every block. It seems like it's a 1-room store, about as big as a bedroom here, and there's shelves. And I walked into them and I find there's 1 bottle of canola oil on the shelf, maybe 4 bottles of flour, 4 bags of flour, and maybe 2 cartons of chicken. So in other words, these stores run out of food very quickly every day. And so people get out and the ones who are ambitious and hardy can walk from one store to another. They may cover 3 or 4 tiendas in an hour and get what they need for the day, for a few days. So, but it's a very safe crowd to walk in. Even at night, I felt comfortable in this town, walking by myself. It was surprising. Typical shopping, and there's a fancier shopping than most people have. A lot of bicycles, there are a number of motor scooters, few cars. Almost no one in the congregation owns a car now. Neither pastor owns a car. I actually went down some spark plugs for Guard Hill the past 6 months. I got them here, and I'm ready to carry them. But now he tells me the car is beyond hope. You know, it was a previous pastor's car. She left it behind. It's a 1964 Russian Lata, kind of like a Ford or a Chevrolet in Russia. And it's, you know, from 1964. It's amazing it even rolls on the street. Anyway, this lady's out, you know, cruising for food, probably got a shopping bag and got her sun cover. And that's the end of my slides for today. I'm going to talk a little bit about finances of our partnership. I want to make sure that everybody knows that the money is dear and donations to our mission in Cuba are worthwhile. I'm not going to read this, but I'll summarize. Last year we left $20,000 cash and we left Cuba. That was a large amount. We had 1 or 2 large donations and a lot of small donations. And we had at the end of the year we had money left over. So we delivered $20,000 to Cuba last year, and we actually reached a little written agreement, a little written contract with the pastors there. And so what that money was going to be done with. We of course carried in our usual full duffel bags, excess baggage. No expensive to bring excess baggage into Cuba, $200 a bag, which is outrageous, and nothing coming back. It's because they're all Cubans living in the U.S. are trying to get supplies back to their families, TVs, clothing, cell phones, you name it. We delivered a cell phone to the pastor. Now that's how we're getting these videos. She's got a cell phone that belongs to this church. And we give it to her, and so that's how we're getting these photos and videos. But anyway, we actually agreed with the church what the money would be spent on this year. $5,000 for the kitchen project, $2,000 to support the Presbyterian that helps us with the logistics of getting to and from the airports, and getting visas for going to Cuba is difficult and risky. That's a mistake and cost of your trip. And so the El Centro Presbyterian and the Havana Church both help getting the visas. We dedicated $2,000 of our 20 to go to the El Centro Presbyterian, and they support the church in various ways, just like our Presbyterian supports our church. And then we wanted to buy a safe to put the money in. We delivered cash. The banks and the money transfer companies like the Western Union charge an arm and a leg in fees. We give you a crummy exchange rate. We give you the official government exchange rate, which is about a fifth of the black market rate that everybody uses on the streets. And so it's a real ripoff to send money to a bank or a money transfer company. I've tried several. I've even tried sending money to private citizens in Spain and Italy who had relatives in Cuba. I was referred to citizens in Venice and in Barcelona. And these were private citizens who were willing to take my money, wire it to them, and send it on to the people in Cuba. In this case, it went to people affiliated with the church. So there's this whole network of money transfer, kind of like I understand Muslims in this world operate as kind of an off the grid money transfer arrangement system. We bought them a safe. We bought them a safe, and they're selling it. All they had was they set a drawer in their business desk, in their office, and put office. They don't maintain records like we Presbyterians do. They don't keep, detailed records of their business like you do. If they just can't afford it, they don't have the equipment, but they know everybody. And so we bought them a safe to keep the money because all they had to lock up the money in was a drawer in the desk. You can get it open in a second with a screwdriver. When we left Cuba, only, what was it? 2 or 3 people knew that we left that cash. We didn't tell people in the congregation. We didn't want the word spread around that we had left that much cash behind. We actually left it, and this is written up in our agreement. Most of it, 80% of it is at the Sagua La Grande church. A fraction of it is at the church where her husband worked at. Because we visited his church also last year. And he has a nice church, well maintained and well equipped, and nice facilities, and separate building for social and educational purposes. We were there on a weekday, I think, or something, so we didn't see the congregation. And then we last year we agreed to supplement the salary, so the pastor did not have to work 3 or 4 days a week teaching school, and so the remainder was just for miscellaneous expenses of maintaining the church. I wanted to mention to all of you that we have a Cuba fund where we put money that is donated by people like you. And the Cuba fund is a special purpose fund, and it is open to donations all year round. You can give money by leaving it in the donation box here, as long as there's a notation on the note line, for the Cuba partnership, or for the Cuba fund, something like that. And we take cash, checks, and we also, you can donate money online on the church's website. Just go to donations, you'll find that there's a service that will forward money to the church. At the end of the year, it's kind of a financial report now, important. But at the end of the year, we had $43,000 in the fund, and we left 20,000 of it in cash. Yeah, Bill and I they raised their eyebrows when we took that much cash out of the everybody bank up the street here. And they kind of sat us down and warned us. They said, you're carrying a lot of cash here. You know what you're doing? We just say, this for ongoing international activity. You can't talk about it going to Cuba. In fact, we try to avoid putting Cuba on the note line because, U.S. banks can't deal with Cuban banks. So, I think of a better way to phrase it, so everybody knows that goes into the Cuba fund here, but it doesn't go up on the checks. And so anyway, the spending plan for next year, 2024, will be approved by the FBC Mission and Social Justice Committee at some point, and will be proposed to Sagua La Grande by the travelers in December 23. Let's see if that that's the end. So with this, I'll take any questions. Yeah.
I know that Bill is interested in having more people go in December or November. And I just wanted to say that there is a fund in the church that was set up many, many years ago called People in Mission. And if you're interested in going, that fund can help you with the expenses of going.
Thank you. Jim.
Could you say what appliances are in the kitchen?
They have a refrigerator and a freezer. They have a gas stove, a portable gas stove. I'm not sure if it burns propane or butane or even natural gas, but it's a gas stove. And they buy 5-gallon tanks, and they buy big tanks. That's their cooking.
And is the refrigerator electric?
Yes. Yeah, they're still having power outages in Sagua La Grande. Havana's kind of recovered. Matanzas is kind of recovered. Matanzas is where the big oil refinery was. A huge fire last year, knocked out their power supply all over the country. When we were there on this past trip, it was 6 hours on and 6 hours off. So we spent some evenings in the dark, flashlights. We brought these clever little LED lights inside a balloon, plastic bag kind of. You can hang it up and it'll light up a whole room. Two AA batteries. And it has a solar charger on it, so you can lay it in the sun during the day. We left a couple of those with them. We knew they were having blackouts. They were going to extend for some time. They really like having it. Just recently, there's been an international political development, both good and bad. I do want to mention this, but let me first ask if there's any question.
Yeah, I wonder, Bill, you've been many times in Alice and Judy and yeah. Anyway, because of you who have been, how would you talk about what you gained? What is the value to your being for carrying stuff? And
That's a deep question, and
I know.
it's very satisfying. Just and it's been such a learning experience. It's like going to Israel for me. I had read about Israel for 30 years and wanted to go there. There was always some crisis going on, some violence at the border, or some riots, people shot. So I postponed Israel. I read all the books on Israel. I finally went to Israel, and I was still totally surprised at what I encountered, both in Israel proper and in the West Bank, and Jerusalem, and Ramallah. And same thing with Cuba. I am totally shocked that these people can maintain a church at this level of civilization, with music and performances and services and education, when they have to hunt for food on a daily basis, they're wandering through these crummy little tiendas. There's maybe one carton of eggs with a whole block of people. I just get, I find it very, very fascinating, interesting, learning experience, and very satisfying. Yeah.
Post Fidel Castro, was it still a dictatorship there?
Castro?
After his regime, Fidel Castro, after his passing, have they maintained a dictatorship? Is that still what you're?
It's yeah, I'm glad you asked, because that brings me to the political subject I was going to talk about. It's still a communist country, communist government, and the communist government is involved at every level of society if they want to be. For example, you can't sell your house and move to another house without city government approving that move. You can't move to another city without somebody saying it's okay. And ultimately, that somebody reports to the Communist Party in the top level government. So it's a communist country, and they're involved in everything they want to be involved in. And it was up to Fidel Castro personally that we have these religious visas. We're allowed to go into Cuba and work with the churches. It was Fidel Castro who personally was convinced in his older age, in his last years, he realized that these American churches are not doing nothing bad. They're not spies, they're not a threat. They're here to help, and they're doing good things for our people. And so he allows his religious visas to be obtained pretty easily. When you get a religious visa, you're not allowed to stay in an American hotel, a big nice hotel. It's illegal technically for an American to patronize nice hotels, because most of them are controlled 51% by the government. But anyway, politically, Castros are gone. Their descendants live on. Castro and his family live west of Havana, past the airport. It's a very nice neighborhood here, down right above the Don Wayne Marina. It's a marina. Sailboat's named after some American. And they live in this little valley there. Very nice. That's where Fidel Castro's 21 children live. They're all adults now. 7 different women. And all their cousins and descendants live there. They all probably have government jobs. It's not a squeaky clean operation, you might hope. It's the only government they got. And the most recent development is rather ominous to me. The Chinese have been in Cuba for 20 years now, 30 years, 25 years. They bring in refrigerators and radios and cell phones, but all the cell phones come from China. Except for the one iPhone that Sagua La Grande that we left behind. No, it's a Google phone. Anyway, China's been in Cuba for years, just going about doing what China does, selling goods. And they produce cheap goods in China. They sell spare parts for these 1950 Chevrolets you see in the pictures. All these lowrider cars you see in the pictures in the tourist district, all polished up and fixed up. Well, where do they get their parts for those cars? U.S. Chevy and Ford don't make those parts anymore. Cuba's making them for them. So Cuba's been there for years. I'm used to China. So, but there's been a momentous development in the last 2 months. The Russians sent a high-level delegation reporting directly to Putin, who met with the president of Cuba. And they met for several days. And out of that came not a treaty, but an agreement for like friendship and economic cooperation and social welfare. And they're going to exchange personnel and programs. And by the way, the Russians agreed to start shipping oil to Cuba again. Maybe the lifesaver for the gasoline problem. But another country came in the last 1 month. Iran came to Cuba and did the same thing. Top level of government reporting to the chief honcho in Iran, meeting with the president of Cuba. And they had a love fest. And they agreed to have a program of international cooperation, social welfare, economic support. So what in the world does Iran want out of that? Well, it's obvious to me. They're going to be close to the U.S. We provide Russia with all the drones that Russia is using right now, and they're this close to having a nuclear weapon, and we're not going to be able to stop them now. And they'll have nuclear weapons next year, I predict. All their facilities are deep underground, can't easily be damaged now. They were attacked years ago by the Israelis, bombed by the Israelis 15 years ago, and destroyed the reactor and other facilities for weapons. But now they've gone so deep in the ground in this mountain, they're impervious to attack practically. And so what do the Iranians want out of Cuba? Surely they just, it's not out of the good of their heart to come and help the poor people. I just don't buy it. But this is going to be a political issue for our government to deal with. I won't say it's our fault, but the embargo, our government's embargo on trade with Cuba has hurt Cuba, not helped it. It hasn't done anything to solve the problem of political. Yeah, Obama opened up the travel enjoy. And so we'll see what happens when we have, and you've read about the Chinese having an intelligence top secret station somewhere in Havana. They've been paid even generously for to allow them to build it. So that's the latest political development. I worry a little bit about that. That could have ramifications for our travel in years ahead. Against the government, but you don't want any. Americans are all. That's just news.
Another question: do Americans travel there as tourists aside from the religious?
No, but there are some it's a very narrow definition of tourists. If you just go in there to play golf and drink, no, you can't do that. But you can set the educational programs are okay. Something
Cultural, isn't there?
Cultural.
I know the Folk Art Museum does cultural.
Programs to help the poor, religious pieces like we do. And so that's one reason why when we travel, very recently, since the embargo, we sleep in the church. We don't sleep in it. There's a new luxury hotel 3 blocks away in Sagua La Grande. I don't know who stays there, but it's not Americans. It's illegal for them to stay there, although practically, if you pay cash, they'll take your money and they'll piss you off.
I have a question for you. You don't have an answer or not. I'm just looking at it as from a business and sort of international protocol point of view. Do you think it would be to America's advantage to try to negotiate and drop that embargo and do some trade with Cuba?
Well, yeah, the Presbyterian Church at the national level has an office dedicated to that goal. We have an office that is an advocacy office for resuming relationships with Cuba.
That sounds
I'm not sure. I'm not aware in detail of the work they're doing, but we have an office at our headquarters.
Has the church thought about a farm garden?
They're already doing that. At Dar Hills Church, the Sagua Church is in a city. There's no arable land on the property. But Dar Hills Church, 20 miles down the road, has a big backyard, and they're growing bananas and coconuts, I don't know, and various vegetable crops. And so they do have an active gardening program. And when the pandemic really hit hard, and they were literally losing weight. I mean, these people in Sagua La Grande have basically lost weight since 2 years ago. I noticed it in a couple of people. The food was so scarce. And this was like the period of 1991 when the Russians pulled out overnight. They left a locomotive engine and train at the train station in Sagua La Grande. It is still there. It hasn't moved 1 inch since 1962 when the Russians pulled out the Russian train because there's no operators. Now it's destroyed by corrosion. Anyway, yeah, the Sagua Church announced to us 2 years ago that they were undertaking a lot of fishing and agriculture to feed themselves. And they are on the ocean, on an estuary. And they're at the upper end of an estuary. The location was determined 300 years ago because that's when the Spanish were traveling along the coast. They ran into these rivers. They have to go up the river to the point where they can cross with horses and carts, cross the river, back down to the coast and along the coast. And so Sagua La Grande is at one of these crossing points on this little river, which is the end of an estuary. There's a whole bunch of fishing boats there. And they go out at night and go fishing. And on the poster right out here, you'll see the pastor holding up 2 big fish that he caught personally. He was going to use to feed his family. The picture is now 2 years old or 3 years old. We're running over. You stay for a few more questions, or you can start leaving. So do whatever you need to do in this half hour before the church service.
The church is at 10 o'clock. This is the first Sunday of the month. And we go back to our regular normal schedule next Sunday. So 8:30 for the service, 9:45 to 10:45 for Dawn Ed, and 11 o'clock service. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
We will be fair and equitable here. If anybody's interested in going to Cuba this fall, winter, it'll be probably the first week in December, weekend after Thanksgiving weekend. We're talking about going. Probably leave on a Thursday, come back on a Tuesday. It'll be a 3-day weekend in Sagua La Grande. We will not be going to Havana or Matanzas because it's too difficult traveling between those cities of Sagua because of the gas shortage. Maybe that'll be different next year when the Russian oil starts arriving. But so anybody who's never been to Cuba, that's unfortunate because Havana and Matanzas there's a lot to see there, and I haven't talked about it. We're going to go straight to Sagua La Grande, and it'll be and we have another place to sleep this for the first time. The Presbyterian is exchanging the manse, the old manse, for a new manse. And in the process, the Presbyterian currently owns 2 manses. Pastor and her family have moved to a new manse, and the old manse is vacant. And some travelers might be able to sleep in that building and have a little more privacy than in the church. In the church, we have basically take 2 multi-purpose rooms, and we have a men's and a women's room, and the men sleep in one room and the women sleep in the other room. And we sleep on. They have single white beds, and we bring sheets, and they have some blankets.
Bill, I'm sure in extending the invitation to travel, the idea of extending that to Westminster is sort of an obvious thing, but I'm wondering to the ILA, extending the invitation beyond to the various congregations in Santa Fe.
There's no problem with that. The problem is that the church has a very limited capacity as to the number of people who you can take in. And last year there was 6 of us from this church and 2 from Hunting Ridge, a total of 8 people. And I don't think we can get by with any more than about 8 people. So we'll form a little committee, Mission and Social Justice and Harry, form a little committee to talk to you if you're interested. You can let me know if you're interested. I'll let them know. And we're going to have you got to be party enough to sleep in a dorm situation like college for 3 nights. And you got to be, and you can't expect to play golf or or go partying in Sagua La Grande. There is like one nice restaurant we've eaten at once. that I know of.
Even though you're hot in the daytime, practice taking a cold shower before you go, because there's no like luxury as warm water shower. In most places we were.
Yeah, they have these heaters that fit on the shower nozzle, electric. And, it violates about 10 provisions of our electrical code. We got a 110 volt wire going up to the head of the shower. There's a switch up there, way up there. Sometimes it sort of hits the water. But the water temperature is never colder. It's just kind of cold. You get their drinking water out of a well. I know nobody drinks the water anywhere in Cuba. Nobody on our trips eats fresh vegetables unless they've been peeled and they have not exposed to the water. I've seen houses on the same street where the church is, where people have a plastic tube going out to the gutter, and they're sucking water, a little aquarium pump, sucking water out of the gutter into their home for use in the home. I don't know if they boil that water when they drink it or not, but the church gets some of its water, most of its water from a well under the church, which is only probably 20 feet deep. But you got to be. This is a little harsh traveling.
Well, and then when we were there, they were bragging that they had organic food because they didn't have facilities to make the chemicals.
They don't have chemical pesticides.
Yeah, so everything you ate, and we eat a lot of it.
So the rule is, we're going to order bottled water from this Spanish company now. We're going to have a whole case of bottled water delivered. We'll all have our own bottle, and there'll be bottles in the fridge. But that's a luxury. The members of the congregation don't touch that water. And they never get it, so you don't need it. But we need it because we are susceptible to intestinal disturbances that they are immune to. And I've seen that happen twice now. Sharon got very sick. Then spent a day in the bed in the tonsils.
And there's that church in Minneapolis, there's the program, it's Walter or something, and they have filtered water, and those churches that have it provided to the community. Turn the tap on and let the community come and get their water.
In a bad.
Okay, well, we can.
And thank you, Margarita.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody out there.